I'm coming from oil and gas industry. That's a couple of years ago. So I am not doing that industry anymore. Been sick or tired to be in a oil platform out in the sea. So I wanted to be a part of the world and create something and do more for the world. So so I started to see the digital technology industry, how benefit the technology have been for us to create anything, business and anything in life. We can do and have anything with the technology today. And a funny story, I texted my little sister, and I just wanted to know if she was having a good time, if she was okay. And I didn't get the answer. So I called her up, and she said to me, "Why the heck are you texting me? I don't want to text you anymore. I'm not doing that." So I was like, "Okay." She's like, "You just send me a Snapchat, and then I will know that you have a good time. And I will send you back with a funny face, and now you know that I'm having a fantastic time." So I was like, "Oh my God, the world is changing. This is a new communication form." So I was like, the kids are picking up all the equipment on how to do things in a better way. So I started to understand the technology making us to do things in an easier way because we're solving problems and we want to serve our product or service, give value to people out there, right? So so I become a digital entrepreneur, doing some online businesses, and I do some public speaking. Now I'm working with BitSpace and also in the gaming industry. We are building a new gaming platform on blockchain, and and I've been around the world and talking to amazing entrepreneurs, and here I'm on stage talking about digital technology with Randy Zuckerberg. She's the founder and CEO of Zuckerberg Media. And she is also a spokesperson for Facebook. And she's Mark Zuckerberg's sister. So, that was a little bit about me. So I really appreciate that we can spend some time together, that you are here tonight. And I wanted to give yourself a big applause. So we are now going to have an enjoyable evening, late night show with some of our speakers, so we can get to know them a little bit better. More personal, who they really are, what they're doing, why are they doing what they're doing. So I will actually bring up our first guest. This guy is a brilliant guy from Sweden. He has 50,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel. So give a big applause to Ivan Liljeqvist. Hey, buddy.
Thank you very much. Is it on?
All right, Ivan. So, Ivan, you're a big leader. You have so much followers that following you every day. And you must be give people much value out there.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm so humbled by the support and the feedback I get on my channel, and it really started by random, you could say, because this summer I was in London working for a company doing software development, and I thought before this job I need to train on my English. So I'll do some programming videos on YouTube, and I'll just train my English that way. And then I figure out that blockchain videos are really popular. And that is where I felt that I can give the most value to people as well. Because for me, as a software developer, as a programmer, it's easier to do research. It's easier to find out new projects and explain new projects to people. So that is really how it started.
That's good. That's good. So tell us a little more about yourself. Who is Ivan? What are you doing in your days? I mean, what's your vision? How do you see the future in like 5 to 10 years?
My own future. Or
your own future.
Future of the world. So, yeah, I'm all about technology, really. I've been programming since I was 9 years old. That is what I love doing. And it all started with, I played a lot of RuneScape, this online game. I spent so many hours, my friends and I would just play it all day long. But one day I was hacked, so my account got stolen. Suddenly I had nothing to do at all. It was just so much free time. And so my mother figured, we need to keep this guy busy. We need to find something for him to do. And so I received my first programming book when I was 9. And after my RuneScape account was hacked. And that is how it started. The first book was about HTML, building basic websites. And on the book, it said that build any website, basically. So I had all these expectations. If I just finish this one book, I will be able to build the next Facebook. I will be able to build the next RuneScape, because RuneScape was a browser game. But of course, when you finish this HTML book, you can do some very basic things. You can't do much, really. And so then I just kept going, JavaScript, PHP, doing backend. And that's how I discovered this passion in technology. Yeah. And I think it's fascinating that you can at home build things and make prototypes, make your ideas a reality. Yeah. And that's what drives me. And that is also what I want to share on my channel, how to take this programming aspect and apply it to blockchain. That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, it's not easy to always follow up all your followers. So what are you doing daily basis, give them a daily value every day, or because you have to keep up, inform people, yeah? I mean, I'm on the stage of talking to people. I mean, it's not it's actually the same. You doing it digital. So I do in a physical, so I always know that every time I have to give something value to keep going. But so what are you doing in daily basis? On the daily, there's just so much things going on in the blockchain sphere. From the beginning, I was a bit afraid that I will run out of content, I will run out of ideas, but there is just so much to cover, new things. It's all fork drama here, explain different forks, explain different projects, explain different ICOs, and the thing is, I'm learning myself as well, as all of these things fold out, and yeah, so it's a learning journey for me. And when I learn something, I share it and try to be as pedagogical as possible. So I don't think it's a problem for a crypto YouTuber to create content, and you never run out of ideas, really, in this space. Yeah, and education is the most valuable thing, because you don't know what you don't know. So it's always important to share things, and that's why we are entrepreneurs, right? We wanted to give value, we want to inform people so they can create and be a part of the world, yeah? So, cool, I like that. Right. Yeah, and by learning you also teach yourself, I think, and you get the best understanding yourself when you are able to explain it to someone and make someone else understand it. Yeah. And so, since I started the YouTube channel, I've improved 100-fold myself as well, and that's how it is when you educate, I think. Yeah. But you mentioned that your background is from Belarus, yeah? Yes, that's true. That's true. So would you say that Eastern Europe people, or people that live in poverty countries, I can see that they understand what's going on much easier in the Western world? Yeah, definitely, 100%. I agree, because So as a YouTuber, you get a lot of ICO requests to cover different ICOs, to maybe interview the founder. And I would say 80 to 90% of those people are from Russia or somewhere around Russia. And I think, as you mentioned, you have all of these problems in the society, in the economic sphere, that you don't have in the Western world as much. For example, hyperinflation, for example, corruption. And it is a no-brainer for someone in Belarus or for someone in Russia to exchange your rubles for dollars or euro. When I was a kid, my grandma told me that, because I was like, why do you have all of these euros? Why don't you just use rubles? And so at a very young age, they actually explained it to me that rubles are not worth anything tomorrow. You never know. And so that is also why I think I'm so interested in cryptocurrencies, because I understand the value. I have experienced it firsthand when it comes to hyperinflation and people, struggling. One day you have $100 in rubles, the next day you have 20 or even less. Also, people are finding solutions to both hyperinflation and corruption in Russia, in Belarus, and in those countries. They have a need to solve. They have a problem to solve.
Yeah, because they're living in corruption. I mean, actually, most of the countries live in corruption, but maybe the Western world don't see it so much, because in the background it's not looking like that. So, but people are being scammed off.
And explaining cryptocurrencies to Swede is a difficulty, and I guess it's the same with Norway in explaining cryptocurrencies for Norwegians, because Norwegian krona is stable, Swedish krona is stable. No one has experienced hyperinflation. No one knows these problems. No one even thinks about how currency works, that you don't have a max cap, that the inflation can come whenever. No one really thinks about those things. But in Russia and Belarus, everyone does.
They say that Norway is the richest country in the world, but people always complaining about these fees. They don't have enough money to do what they wanted to do. So why are you complaining when you think you're having the best, when you think you're living in the best country? So I don't understand that, but maybe that's because the corruption is, you can see it more in these poverty countries. You think that?
So I'm not really getting it. So in Norway, people are complaining that they are poor, when in reality, when you look at different countries and you compare Norway to different countries, it is a rich country.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
It's very interesting.
But so is that an issue in Norway, that people are struggling for real with rent and food, things like that?
Most people, they're not struggling, but in the end of the month, people don't have any money anymore. So they live and paycheck to paycheck, and they have these weekends to enjoy themselves, but in the end, there is no money. So where is the freedom? So, but I think that Eastern Europe countries, they can feel that more.
But I think it is like that in any country, and it is up to the individual to create his or her own freedom. I mean, if you just follow the normal path, I think you will end up maybe in such a place where you only have enough, but not more. Yeah, I think you need to be creative and to find new ways to earn your own freedom.
Yeah, and that's what technology do for us. But we have to understand it and take advantage of it. All right. So, what do you think is your biggest challenge right now? Do you have a challenge? I mean, maybe not. You are a big leader.
Right now, I'm trying to build up my company, and it's a lot of challenges there.
Yeah.
Organizing people, finding people. I've never done it before, so that is my current challenge. Yeah. Just learning how to run a company, basically.
Yeah.
And how to scale a business as well. And also speaking. I mean, this was my first speech live, and I want to do more of this.
So this was your first live speech?
Yeah, and I need to improve that. So that is a challenge. So I think you always have challenges. As a person, you're growing every year, you need to improve. So as long as you're pushing yourself, it's a good thing. So you should have challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's too. I mean, more you can handle pressure, more you grow.
Exactly.
Give a big applause to Ivan. So now we're going to bring up our next big YouTuber. He's the biggest YouTuber on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So give a big applause to Chris Coney. Somebody. All right, Chris.
Yes, matey, how are you?
You are a big YouTuber as well.
Small YouTuber. He's
Smaller.
big. He big? He's small.
How many followers, subscribers?
31,000.
1,000.
31.
31,000.
31,000.
Okay, yeah.
Not 31. I should be over there.
So tell us a little bit more about your personal life. What you're really passionate about? What's your thing? I mean, you do education.
I do?
Yeah.
Okay, so in my many reflections on the world's problems, I've been thinking about like the big problems in the world for as long as I've been able to think for myself, I would say. And what I'm always looking for, whenever I examine a problem, I'm looking for like the systemic cause, like the fundamental in cause and effect. What's the real bottom cause? So I spun this around, and eventually, after many years, I came up with two key things that are at the bottom of all the world's problems, right? Lack of education and the money system, right? If those two things allow the world to be the way it is, and they also enable, they're sort of like the soil through which all the world's problems grow. So I figured if we could fix that, it would have a huge impact on anything else that you care about. Environmentalism, human trafficking, all this stuff either revolves around a lack of money or a lack of education of any particular person, right? Especially the money system, because that's money is power. And because the system is unfair, it ends up with unfair outcomes. So with a realization like that, you can understand why I ended up in the Bitcoin education business, right? Because that was like the perfect solution to what I identified.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, yeah. Our education system sucks right now. Right. I mean, when you go to school, they don't teach you how to think. They teach you how they want you to think. So that's the main problem today.
Yes.
So, so we, as entrepreneurs, we have to take the responsibility to educate people, so they can be more creative to give a value to the world.
Yes, absolutely.
So I totally agree with you.
I tell you what, everyone's individual, because everyone can be an educator, right? The one thing that everyone has is a unique view of the world. I believe that is someone's fundamental value, right? Without any skills or education, the one thing you have that no one else has is your view on the world. And I believe that has value.
Yeah.
The trouble is that without a system or a society through which to express your unique view on the world, it never gets heard. So as we go through this process of going from, companies and institutions and organizations that are built as a hierarchy, and we flatten them out so that everyone is equal in these networked systems, then the 7 or 8 billion individual views on the world can bring their ideas to the table, and that will bring out far better outcomes than just a few people at, the EU Parliament or the Federal Reserve or whoever government, just a few people deciding for the rest of the world. They're not going to come up with the best ideas, right? That's why we have crowdfunding, the wisdom of the crowd. The problem is we can't get to the crowd because the crowd doesn't have a voice.
Yeah. I believe you, and that is the problem. I mean, there is no limitation of ideas. I mean, you can do anything, and you can create any business of anything you want to create.
Right.
So, but like you said, it's a lack of education.
Too many barriers.
Yeah,
Right.
too many barriers. I mean, we are talking about technology. Yeah, the physical technology we are creating is good, but what is the biggest technology? I mean, the mind is the biggest technology. I mean, the mind is creating what you want. I mean, that's you making your reality.
Right. Yeah, well, the Bitcoin network has no value if there's no people, right? It
Yeah.
could just sit there, but there would be no activity. You know, every Bitcoin transaction, at the moment anyway, is a person on the other end. Now, that might change when it's machine-to-machine payments, but at least someone's going to create those machines, right?
Yeah. So, so education should be like, when the teacher comes, it should say like, okay, today's topic is use your imagination.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. So that would be training people to use their mental faculties, not memorizing information, because that's not education. Education is learning how to think, right? How to think critically, how to solve problems. And this is becoming especially important as the rate of new information, the rate at which new information is created is so abundant. There was when Facebook and Twitter and these social networks started to become mainstream, I remember this video. It was called Did You Know? I don't know if anyone's seen this, but it went through all of these mind-blowing statistics about how a graduate that starts university, say in 2017, if it was a 4-year degree, by the second year, the first year's out of date, because of the rate of information change and the rate at which information is being created is so fast. So in a world like that, what's the point in memorizing information? It's not going to work, right? The new
Right.
skill set needs to be, how do you form good questions? Because Google will fetch the information for you, but you have to know how to ask it the right question. Because it's dumb, it will just bring you back whatever you tell it. The skill is, how do you ask a good question? That's the kind of thing we should be teaching kids,
Yeah.
right?
So what you're saying is like, your success is a decision away, yeah?
Your success is a decision away. Yes, however, you can only make choices based on what you're aware of. I had this chat earlier on. How can someone choose to use Bitcoin if they've never heard of it? So that's
Yeah,
real
that's,
education.
that's true.
Education creates new choices. And with new choices come the chances to be free. If you only have one choice, you're not free. So that's the responsibility of us as educators, is to actually make people aware that there's a new choice. Now, if they don't choose to make it, fine, they can stay in the prison of the old financial system. But at least now we can say that is their choice. Whereas until they have an alternative, they don't have a choice. So my job is to give them a choice and then let them decide.
Yeah. I mean, people always have a choice, but maybe they don't know that they're aware of that they have a choice.
So it's not a choice, right? It's like if I put my hand here, I can't see it, right?
Yeah.
So if this was a second choice, I can't make it,
Yeah.
right? I don't have access to it.
Yeah. So, you are doing cryptoverse. Tell me more about cryptoverse. It's like an education school, yeah?
Yep, there are two strands to my business. One is Cryptoversity, which is like cryptocurrency university. And the tagline for that is the online school for Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains. So that's kind of a little hierarchy in itself. Bitcoin is the thing that most people have heard of. It's a cryptocurrency, so that's more general. Then blockchain technology is even more general than that. And that then gets you into all the other digital assets and so on. So once I started to build Cryptoversity, I thought, how are people going to find out about this? And also, there's no way on earth I'm going to be able to create enough courses to cover all the information. It's not going to work. So I just created a few courses and then decided to start a podcast called The Cryptoverse, which is like the universe of cryptocurrencies, like all the things, right? And then I figured I'll just give away as much information as I can on the podcast. People will watch it and go, that guy knows what he's talking about. I wonder what else he's got, right? And then go to the online school where I can teach them in a very structured way. So Ivan was talking about this. It's very hard, especially when you make a course. I would argue it's easier to do a YouTube channel or a podcast because you can just pick whatever's topical, and then it's discarded because it goes old very quickly, number one. And number two, there's no real sequence to it. It's just whatever's coming up on the day. When it comes to like teaching someone else it, like Ivan was talking about, you're really forced to be like, okay, you have to structure your thoughts so you can deliver it to somebody else. And the most difficult is when you have to put together a course where you actually have to get someone from not being able to do something to being able to do something. So that's another point about education. I don't particularly believe in education for education's sake. I'm not a big fan of just pure academia. Again, because of the rate of change in the world, you have to learn something and be able to apply it pretty quickly, right? What can you do as the result of what you learnt? If the answer is nothing, you shouldn't have taken that course. That's my view. Unless it's just for pleasure, fine, but I just think there's too many problems in the world that we need courses that educate people to actually solve real problems. So when you get to the point of, okay, what do I want someone to be able to do at the end of this course, then you work backwards. And you think, well, how do you then break it down and structure it in a way? And it has to be in order, right? Kind of like in time, because you have to take them from one concept, build on it, build on it, build on it, until they end up at the end going, I can now do something that I couldn't do before, right? So that's the most difficult thing about what I do.
So you are actually working from the end and backwards.
You have to.
So that's getting back to like, what do you really want? When you're gonna find that you want something, then you will figure out how to reach it. Yes.
Me, or the
No,
students.
I mean, in general, people have to know what they really want. That's the main thing. I mean, you cannot just try to fit in if you don't know what you want in life.
Yes, maybe that's another part of education.
So that would be another person's paradigm, and because you didn't actually go for your goals, what you want in life.
Right.
So then you will come to a point that, okay, I'm still stuck. You don't want to take that course, or you don't want to learn because you haven't figured out what you want.
Right, that would come back to knowing yourself. So again, that should be in school. Like figuring out what the child's gifts, talents, and abilities are. Like what are their gifts? What are their interests? What are their preferences?
Yeah.
Because how many college graduates come out of it going, just no direction,
Yeah.
right? They may not have even chosen a degree based on their unique talents, right? And they may end up in a career that is miles away from what their talents are.
Yeah.
So they're not able to be as effective as they could be.
Yeah.
So again, this is the new world of education. It's not about facts, figures, and memorizing stuff. It's about learning to master the mind. What have you got, right?
Yeah.
I figured out I happen to have a voice. That's one of my skills. But that was, again, through self-inventory. I had to kind of reflect on myself, ask people around me, and what am I good at? What do you see I'm good at? Because you can seldom figure out what your own gifts are. You have to sort of get someone else to sort of pull them out of you, right? And that's what teachers should be doing.
Yeah.
They should be identifying what people's gifts, talents, and abilities are, and then showing them. You know, back to the hand. This is my talent. And until someone shows it to me, I go, oh yeah, I am actually quite good at that, right? You know, that would accelerate people's success in life, no way.
Yeah. And let's go back to actually the technology. Technology can really give a voice.
Yep. Especially technology breaking down barriers. So the whole idea of a school in the traditional sense, which is a building, well, that's a 20th century idea, right? When even an 8-year-old could have direct access to me on YouTube and learn about cryptocurrencies, who knows what they'll come up with, right? And that's why I do it, because I can just reach everybody. And self-education, that's the 21st century school. Self-education.
Self-education.
Yep.
I believe you. So you guys, what are you doing when you're not teaching?
I like working out. That is what I do besides YouTube, going to the gym. Before YouTube, I was a swimmer. during my maybe from 10 years old to 16 years old, that is where I had my swimming career, and I do still a bit of swimming still. But otherwise, it's building the company right now, our blockchain consultancy in Stockholm, where we're educating businesses, organizations, maybe even governments in the future about this technology and how they can use it. Try to scale this whole blockchain business that we got going. And then just learning myself and teaching people on YouTube. That is basically what I do. And it's wonderful because it doesn't feel like work. It feels like my friends and I were hanging out and we're learning, we're teaching, we're building companies in the blockchain sphere.
Nice.
So the question was, what do we do when we're not working? Like when we're not teaching?
Yeah, what are you doing in your day when you're not teaching? I mean,
when I'm not teaching, I'm either creating new recipes, like cooking, right? I like creating different sandwiches. That's my thing.
Yeah.
I've got like 1,000 different sandwich recipes, right? All different breads, right? Different spreads, different fillings. There's so much you can do with a sandwich. Trust me, it's cool, right? I've even got this little book, right? It was amazing. It was a little book, and it's kind of cut into sections like this, and you can turn like the top piece over to change the top bun. And then you can change like the first piece of filling. And then so you can create like lots of different combinations by flipping through this book. It's kind of like a recipe book, but you build it yourself. And when I saw that, I was like, that was written for me, right? So either cooking or meditating, I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's, again, self-inventory, learning to know how my own mind works, what are my hang-ups. Again, you can learn a lot about yourself from your thought patterns.
Yeah.
So and what did you say earlier on? You said something about, you said the more pressure you can handle, the more you'll be successful. Okay, so I wholly agree with that.
That's my belief. I mean,
right, absolutely. This is actually grounded in brain science. Is another reason why I meditate. So it's not so much, I would say, the amount of pressure you can handle. It's more about what's your capacity, what's your brain's capacity to process what I would call chaos, right? So if you can stand in a stressful environment with a lot coming at you without losing your mind, right, and getting stressed, because as soon as you've got stressed, your systems become overwhelmed, right, with data. So I'm a big advocate of meditation because it literally expands your mind. So the size of my mind's ability to handle lots and lots of information coming at me has grown the more that I've meditated. So that means that, at any time you could put me on a stage, throw me into a chaotic situation, and if I had a small mind, if you like, that would cause me to go in like this, right? Because it would be like, oh. But with an expanded mind, you just don't get those stress chemicals, right? So anyway, that was a long answer to the question, what do I do when I'm not teaching? I do a lot of meditation. Because it's very practical. It's not just for the sake of it, it's not to attain enlightenment, it has real world benefits to my business and the people around me. So that's why I do it.
Yeah, I mean, don't misunderstand me with when you handle pressure. I mean, what I meant was like the brain is like a muscle. You have to always keep going. I mean, I do a lot of fitness. I was going to fitness competitions, and I was always trying to build my body, and I get very, very, very fit. But it was like something was missing. I forgot to train my brain.
Right.
So I was like, okay, because the brain is like a muscle too. You have to always keep the pump up. I mean, we wish that if I just could learn this and this and this, then I can relax and don't think anymore. But the thing is that you are degrading yourself when you're thinking that way. So you have to always keep going, because when you keep going, you're growing.
Okay.
If you not grow, you're gonna die.
Let me pick you up on that, right? So back to the education thing. The other thing we should be teaching people is how to learn fast, right? That's a skill. Because the information isn't going to live very long, the skill then doesn't become who's got the most qualifications or who's got the most knowledge memorized, because it's going out of date anyway. The skill becomes how fast can you acquire new skills? How fast can you master new information, right? Because that's a life skill. And then any new subject that comes along, you'll just apply that skill to it, learn it, and that'll make you it'll give you a successful life.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you keep going, you will upgrade your process all the time. So
Exactly.
of course, you're gonna get faster.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, it's amazing, guys. So give a big applause to them. I mean, if you wanna educate yourself, this is the real deal. All right. Thank you very much.
You good?
I have to say thank you, Ivan. So I have to bring up the next one. I want to bring up Cedric Coban. Where are you, buddy?
Speed up into unit.
Okay. Okay.
Caught me off guard. I didn't get a chance to bring my cup of wine. Shall I sit closer?
Yeah. Come closer, man. So, Cedric, you're the founder of Peartracks.
Yes.
So, are you a musician yourself?
No, actually, this whole thing came out of a forum. I stumbled onto Bitcoin in 2011 thanks to me going from super hardcore leftist to ANCAP, and that made me just want to add a whole bunch of those new weird types of people to my Facebook, including Jeff Berwick. And he posted, check this out, there's this new currency that is not controlled by Goldman Sachs, not controlled by central banks or anything like that. So originally it was just an ideological thing. Great, there's this new free market money. And in 2013, when the giant bubble at Christmas came up for the $1,000 Bitcoin, I started looking more into the tech because there was these 2.0 projects coming out, and it wasn't just about money. It was an actual technology that could revolutionize every single field. So I started following BitShares, and I just posted on a forum, an idea I had for, a tokenized talent discovery system, and this turned into a project. Just the reception of this post turned into a project. So I was never I never played an instrument, I don't sing, my voice would suck at that. So I never really got into that whole space. I really like music, and I listen to it all the time since I'm a kid. I think I had a Walkman with like Michael Jackson cassettes, so I guess that's old school. So I've been listening for a long time, but I've never been an artist. It's just an idea I had that blockchains could be applied to this, and I would like to use that. I would have enjoyed investing in artists before they were cool and actually benefiting from the popularity of that artist financially.
So you just saw the problem and you just wanted to go in and solve a big problem in the music industry.
Exactly. Just an idea, and I kind of pursued it. But when I started, we noticed that exact idea had another, a market was ripe for another problem to be solved, which was the royalty issues. So royalties have a giant problem. It takes, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, it can take 18 months to get royalties funneled from the company to the musician. It goes through performing rights societies and organizations, and it's not transparent. So it was just, if you look at bullet points of, look at any market, not transparent, takes forever to receive your funds, is always dealing in micropayments, silos of information. All of that was solved by blockchain. So the original idea for investing in musicians through user-issued assets or tokens was actually kind of on the sideline compared to actually changing the royalty game. Yeah. So that's kind of how the project evolved. But I couldn't play guitar even if you have one. I'm not gonna. Sorry if that was the plan.
But in your earlier speech, you mentioned there is so much issues with copywriting and stuff like that. But isn't that very illegal to do that? I mean, you can get sued when you do that. Is there a still problem with that in the traditional industry?
Yeah, like piracy, you mean? Yeah, piracy, there's problems with piracy. It depends what stance you take on IP, intellectual property. There's, arguments on both sides. So some people would say that intellectual property is required for the music world because how would the artist get paid? But the facts and the opposite argument would be that there's more music now than there ever was. They looked at the amount of songs in existence till like 2000, and then when, you know, post-internet, it just exploded. There's so much more music than before. So if piracy and torrenting is actually a big problem, why are people creating more music than ever? So it's, you know, there's arguments both sides. There's a bunch of books on it and a huge debate. It's something, but in essence, yeah, there definitely is a problem in piracy for some, and it was for those that were used to making the anomaly. So for in the entire history, you had to actually play an instrument or sing, and you were paid. You were there physically at a party playing live. Then when they started being able to record it through technology, technology came and it allowed you to not perform. You could perform once and then just spread it around. And this created, if you look at history, it created an anomaly for 100 years. Bam, people were making mad money, mad pussy, can I say that? You know, it was just a complete anomaly, historical standards. And now it just came back to when the sharing became easy, the distribution became easy / free, it went back to the traditional method of just performing. And people that are used to, you know, the mad pussy, couldn't take that. It was just, it's a giant, it's a hit in the face. Can I say that? Was that a slap for like, shut up with your cuss words? Sorry, Oscar. So that's one way to see it, and that wouldn't be a popular, you know, thing to say. But the other thing is that technology is also the pill to solve the problem. Distribution has been made extremely easy since the internet. But monetization is extremely hard because it's based off of 100 years, not of market-driven forces, but on arbitrary legislation and different by jurisdiction. So you have to go to, you know, through copyright offices and different people with different power push for this and push for that. So it's never driven by market demand or what the musicians want. It's just politics, politics, politics. And if you base your foundation of your industry on arbitrary politics, it's a shit industry. That's my perspective as a weird dude looking at it from the outside. Because I'm not a musician. I just came in from the crypto space, looked at how music royalties worked, and it's chaos. And people from the music world, they'll agree. You know, from an outsider, you come in like, oh, hey, I know this complicated blockchain thing. And like, yeah, your industry is way simpler than ours. Ours requires armies of lawyers and, you know, it's chaos. Yeah. So I accidentally stumbled upon the worst industry you could be. Like, hey, I think I understand something complex, blockchains, and then you get into the music world, and it's just, so, yeah, anyway. The issue of piracy, my whole point, I ramble a lot, but the whole point is that distribution was made free, but monetization was very, very complex. It still goes through the legacy system. Blockchain can change that to make it equal. It's as easy to distribute via torrenting than it is to send a cryptocurrency. It takes, you know, 1 second confirmation times with you know, the most up-to-date blockchains. So I think the music world is afraid of technology because of what Napster did and torrenting. Oh, you can't stop it. But now you have blockchains that pay you and you can't stop it. So you're good. You're good. You'll be good.
Excellent.
Do you have a follow-up for that? Were you ready for this?
So actually, they told me to speed up so we can be here for hours. But so, okay, just what are you doing in your days when you're not on blockchain?
Oh, shit, that's an even longer answer. Okay, I like stuff in general. If it explains a concept or how things work, I like it. So recently, I'm into how the brain works. So I kept rambling about this at last night's dinner. Developing Mind, Daniel Siegel, read that shit. Jordan Peterson, just basically understanding how complex systems work. And what you mentioned in like two guests ago was the mind.
We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about it nonstop. And the mind is the most complex machine, and it's super fascinating to see how every little module works. So this is the current focus, fascination. Otherwise, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Can't recommend that enough. I won't even begin talking about it because there's too many benefits to it, and it'll take 3 hours, and it's just boring if you don't see what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Austrian economics is what kind of drove me to. So I was a hardcore leftist just wanted to change the world and had the idea that, you know, you just need people to be altruistic and human nature will disappear through education. That was my original thought. But you can't just educate away human nature. Selfishness is there, and selfishness can actually be very good when the only way to make money is by helping others. So if you have two methods to make money: create value or lobby. And one is really, really hard. So it costs $1 million of R&D to make like another extra 10 million, or it costs 100,000 to a senator or to a regulator to make the 10 million. So a smart person would just take the shitty route of bribing and, you know, so the original interest was that. I had that. I didn't understand that point yet. I associated making tons of money with being an evil exploitative person. But when that switched and when the Jeff Berwicks and the Austrians just kind of influenced me, then the switch really kicked on, like, oh, you can actually, you know, I have totally no idea what the question was, to be honest. I just started rambling. But repeat what you said. That's what happens if you give me wine and then tell me that I'm going to be on a stage. Okay.
All right. So, give it up for Cedric.
Let's finish with that.
Thank you very much, man. Yeah, you can just sit down.
I sit?
Yeah, just...
I have to
Just
sit
stay,
here, wineless.
We are going to bring up our next guest. We're going to bring up the president, Vit Jedlicka. All right, Mr. President, how are you?
I'm good, I'm good. My name is Jedlicka, you know, if somebody really wanted to pronounce it correctly, but you're going with the mainstream, so.
All right. So, who is Vit?
Who am I?
I mean,
That's the basic question. Who are
we know you are a president, but...
are we actually in this virtual reality already, which is being projected to us, and we are basically living already in hologram, which is in hologram, which is in hologram, and the probability of that is very likely, almost infinite, right? That we are already stuck in a virtual reality that was created in virtual reality that was created in virtual reality. And I don't know how many of you guys have read that or seen those. I've been exploring that concept maybe 5-6 years ago, like I was going through that, but Peter Thiel, or who was it actually now? Elon Musk is pushing, but Peter was also looking into it. But Elon Musk is pushing it now hardly, and he's right, probably. You know, so who are we in that infinite, recursive universes that we are living? That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one thing is to create something, but you building up a whole country. I mean, and you're building up the country on blockchain. I mean, tell us more about that.
Yeah, the funny thing is that I might have done it already endless times, and I'm still kind of learning how to do that.
Okay.
Sometimes I do get déjà vu when I'm doing stuff. So, yeah, we're trying to bring some advancement, at least in this universe, into that particular technology.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to go. And it's, you know, people are asking me, where do you think Liberland will be in 5 years, or 10 years, or 50 years? And of course, you know, the secret mission of libertarians was to take over the world and leave people alone. And so I'm on that secret mission. Recently we changed the statement from just Liberland as a territory to a couple more places, but we might expand it. And then, of course, it'd be nice to tokenize the planet, make it a little bit more free and move on to another, so that would be a nice
So
mission.
you're gonna build up Liberland and you're gonna occupy another country, yeah?
No, not occupy. Well, assimilate.
So what was your biggest vision? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I really didn't have anything better to do in the first place.
So you get one mission.
And then I told you it was serious. Like, I've been talking to people, person after person was telling me, you should start your own country if you're serious about what you're saying, you know, that we should have this and this and shouldn't have a big government. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And it was this pressure that like made me go. And of course, I've got a good friend as well, Jiří Krejbich, kind of a crazy guy. When Liberland started, he decided like 1 month after that he's no longer on the mission, that he's building the most and the best sex dating website on internet. So
Okay.
he jumped off, and I was like, okay, good for you. But you know, we're in touch, and he's still my good friend. But without that person, I also wouldn't make it, because he was strongly pushing for it. He was the one, you know, sending me, take a look in this place between Egypt and Sudan. So we were almost, you know, flying to between the space between Egypt and Sudan, where we would very likely get killed on the first. And then some guy, Jeremy Heaton, made it there. But it took him 3 months to get approval from Egyptian government to go there. There is a place which both countries claims it belongs to the other.
Okay.
So it's a different situation with Liberland, where Serbia says, we don't mind creation of Liberland. And Croatia basically says, it doesn't belong to Croatia, but you cannot have it, right? It's a very delicate legal situation, which is of course not in their favor. Like you cannot say, you cannot have something that you don't own, right? But in the area between Egypt and Sudan is a different story. Both countries claim it belongs to the other. So I think it's much harder to do. And by the way, there is an interesting story to the place between Egypt and Sudan. It's 6,000 square kilometers. Oh no, 3,000, pardon. 3,000 square kilometers. This area called Bertavil, which by the way means well, like a water well, but I doubt there is any water whatsoever. And this area, it's interesting because I used to do animated videos as part of my like late career in animated videos, and they were quite successful, especially for political campaigning. And I also did an animated video for him and for promotion of his new state, which was Northern Sudan. By the way, that was also interesting. Northern Sudan recognized Liberland on the minute it was created, and it went viral in the mainstream media that Sudan recognized Liberland, Northern Sudan, and nobody cared that it's a Northern Sudan, which, you know, was an unrecognized country declared by Jeremy Heaton, some American. You see the level of journalism and the quality, it's out there, right? And you see it with your own eyes. There are so many media now that claim that Liberland is 7 square meters. They just skipped the kilometers, and they made us 7 square. So this guy, let me finish that story. I made an animated video for him at the worst time ever. When Liberland started, I was sleeping maximum 3-4 hours for more than a month, and it was fun. I was energized. I was waking up exactly 5:01 every single day when it started, and it was amazing. Like seriously, on that second, I just opened my eyes, looked at the clock, and went no clock. And this time when I was so busy, I did an animated video for Jeremiah, which I promised him before, and he never paid me. The king of Northern Sudan never paid me for the video, and he's owning me and now Liberland $6,000. I was thinking that's a great, you know, we could maybe make a swap for this depth, 2 kilometers. $2 per kilometer, that's fine with me. So I think we will also claim this piece of land between each other. And the great thing about this piece of land is that we've got 95,000 Egyptians signed up for Liberland.
Oh, really?
So, you know, we can, I think that's the main reason why the secret service agencies are so interested in Liberland. They're able to spark revolution in Egypt or build a new country between these two countries in no time, maybe with just a couple of emails.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, give him a big applause. So, what is Liberland's biggest challenge right now?
Well, you know, it's to set the institutions right. And this is a big challenge because, of course, there is a lot of technology out there that we would like to utilize, but I don't want to be the first one that tests its errors, right? And that's remember the problem with the Parity wallet? If we run an ICO maybe a year ago, we would be the ones that funds would be lost with the Parity wallet. We would definitely be the ones that would be using it. So this is a bit challenging to really go with the technology that you can trust. And everything is kind of new and untested. The same applies for other technologies, even the tokenization and now the security of the website, the Slack is being spammed by scammers when you start an ICO and all these things. It's quite complex, and now the jurisdiction-wise as well, so you have to basically ban Americans from buying your tokens. I was just on an ICO weekly call that we have, like 6 people there pushing it actively. Not the advisors, well actually one of the advisors already joined us, but the executive team, and it's a big talk, right? Switzerland just now, as I got the news, also crashed on, like they basically don't allow an ICO which doesn't do a KYC for every single token holder, which is pretty much destroying the ICO business in Switzerland as well, in some sense, because the KYC policy is going to be so expensive, especially with small people that are getting on board. So it's a lot of challenge, and the technological one is, I think, the biggest one. And then, of course, the connection of the land and the original entity is also a bit problematic, because you can always have courts in that country challenging you. Right now we are solving that issue with the Honduras project, so it will be a big challenge to get it right, also locally on the spot. But all these things are solvable, and I'm very positive that we will solve them with the people on board.
So you're saying that blockchain is very important for Liberland to exist?
Well, right now we've got a complete strategy for making, and I think it's really one generations ahead of the e-residency of Estonia. We've got a complete strategy how to basically tokenize all the processes in a government, and we want to be the first one, right? The Dubai is the one that wants to do it by 2020. We want to do it next year, and I think we are very close to. I think by the beginning of the year we will make it public, the strategy. It will be part of our already marketing for the next round of the ICO, but we will make it public what we want to do, and I think we got the right people on board that are visionary enough to make it that it will last at least for a decade.
Yeah.
The system itself. I hope Liberland's going to be there at least for 1,000 years.
You the president.
But the system, the governance systems, it is a challenge to build them in a way that they would last a decade. So.
Interesting guy, yeah. Give him a big applause.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I have to say thank you very much for both of you. Yeah, now I'm going to have our 2 last guests.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We're going to have our last guests. That will be Henning Rockling and Michael Reed.
Okay.
All right, the virtual guys.
I had a little bit of confusion. I didn't know this was going on tonight. I thought you were having a podcast or something. So
oh, you thought it was tomorrow?
It's awesome to be up here.
So you thought it was tomorrow? Okay, yeah, Michael. Yeah, everybody saw your work. I mean, I loved it. I believe in what you're doing, because I believe that, like we talked earlier, how we can increase ourselves, and what your project, it will start to increase people's creativity, and you are boosting up your brain actually. So yeah, tell us more about that. When did you start with that, and how did you see that this would be the future? I mean, was that more like the economy thing, or more like artificial intelligence, or?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. You know, really, it goes back. I guess I'd say the Matrix. right? Just being so obsessed with that film and just, watching it so many times. I've always had my mind on this next frontier of virtual, next frontier of digital, right? And so, recently, it's been 2 years now, and man, has the time flown since I started Practical VR, but it's come to mind about how much we need a better understanding of the physical world for digital. Right. Today, our digital world is trapped in screens. We sit at a desk or we sit in a chair to consume the majority of our digital content. And digital doesn't understand anything around us. But going into this next step and this next frontier, digital needs to start to understand our world. And so that's just kind of fascinated me in so many ways. And, that's why we created this stepping stone we built an analytics portal, the first analytics portal for mixed reality. And so we're allowing developers to track data in their applications, whether it's a game or enterprise-based product. They can see real-time statistics and stats as their users engage. And so the next step, though, is how do we get digital to understand more? Because what's about to happen is we won't need screens anymore for digital. Right? We saw today the holograms and having those in your environment, but the possibilities are endless there. We were talking about virtual teachers earlier today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, I just asked whether I could question you about that, because so what you're actually describing is what some people are referring to as invisible apps. And that you don't really see the user interface anymore. It's just there, and digital is an extension of ourselves. How do you see augmented reality working together with smart homes and voice-controlled machines and other types of interfaces, and how does AR and other types of interfaces work together?
Yeah, so that's really interesting because I like to think of these emerging technologies. A lot of people think of them as kind of in silos, right? People are working on AI, or people are working on IoT, or people are working on blockchain, or people are working on mixed reality. I go to mixed reality conferences and I have to explain blockchain, and I go to blockchain or crypto conferences and I explain mixed reality. And so I see that those technologies are going to come together and become kind of a singular form. I've already seen apps for the HoloLens to where someone can turn on their fan by looking up and tapping on the fan, or turn on a light doing the same, change the colors. So, talking about IoT and the smartphone or smart home, it simplifies that user experience because we no longer have to dig a phone out of our pocket to turn our lights on when we talk about a smartphone, or even simplifying the transaction of crypto. Think of how hard it is to send Bitcoin from person to person. You dig your phone out of your pocket, you unlock your phone, you got to scroll through and find the app wherever you put that. Then you might have another passcode on your actual wallet. Then you have to scan their QR code, right? Now you finally have their address in your phone, and you type in the amount, you can hit send, and then you wait for it to show up on their device. That's too complicated. There's so many complications to interacting with digital, but when it becomes an extension of us, like you mentioned, it's just literally pulling a coin out of your hand and tossing it at the person you want to transact with. And what's going to be the underlying infrastructure that enables that is the question that's been on my mind. And that's what we're working towards, is to enable kind of that underlying infrastructure of mixed reality that merges these techs together.
Yeah, you mentioned the Matrix. I'm also fascinated with that movie, but back then it was just a movie. But I believe that we're trying to understand ourselves. So, but because we creating tools like the VR to understand more, to create more. But actually, we are that intelligence already. But since we don't understand it, we need tools to understand it. But I was like, I believe that the brain works in different brain waves, different frequencies. So it's like, let's say you wanted to upgrade yourself, you wanted to learn some skills. You can actually download it, like in the movie Matrix. So, but you are like, you creating something, another stimulating form with the vision. But you can actually stimulate with that with normal brainwaves. Let's say you have a skill, and if I can take out that frequency of that skills you have, I could just download it to my brain, and I could have the same skill. So it's basic on the same thing, but we're just using a different stimulations. Once there was back 2 years ago, it was like I hated to read books. I was like, no, fuck, I'm not gonna read. So I went to this neurofeedback. Then you put some dots on your brain, so you get stimulating with the brain waves. And I actually, the guy just put a programming about reading, because that has their own frequency, yeah? And to concentrate more. So, like after 15 to 20 sessions, I was like tunnel reading. Now I can read. So, yeah, it's possible. So you can actually download things. It's working. So, so with artificial intelligence, it's amazing. So love what you do with VR. It's the same thing.
I agree. Digital is starting to lower the barrier to entry for learning in so many ways. And, you know, just to paint the picture of how the technology I'm working with might lower that barrier to entry, when you can sit underneath a car and you can have every, you know, piece of that car highlighted, and you can see where all the screws are, and you can see step-by-step instructions on how to change a part out on a car. That's incredible. You know, that lowers the barrier to entry to so much, and that's, you know, that's the stepping stone to greater frontiers of learning. So it's very, very interesting to think about the education side of things in that in general. Have you thought much about like education and gaming and, you know, that side of things? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually a really interesting question, because that's one of the first thing I started thinking about when I got involved in creating games professionally, not just as a hobby, but actually working with creating games. And this is back in 1993. That's when I started making games. And back in those days, this is when Super Mario World and Super Nintendo was very hot, and Nintendo was kind of like the gold standard of games. And I remember that was at the time I was actually religiously following Japanese games. I was like hardcore into it in the mid-90s. And I got really interested in the topic of how are you applying pedagogic methodology to teaching players how the rules of a game world are. Also, what are the rules of this world? Because from one game to another, the rules are all different. But you're starting to, and I started working on that without, there was no internet, so you couldn't really look things up. You had to sort of distill some information by yourself by looking at the gold standard products that were there and try to analyze them. And it had to do with shapes and colors, and you know, you had like what you would today refer to as tutorials, but you would have to implement it in a very natural way. And at this point, and this was like early 1994, this was when the first Montessori school opened up in Oslo. And I remember the chairman of the company I worked at, he had some dealings with them. And so he took a bunch of us who were like design oriented up to the school, and I was introduced to the pedagogics of Maria Montessori. And I just, after doing all of this thinking on my own, and then I got exposed to the Montessori teachings, I was like just blown away, because this this fit exactly with what we were trying to do when we were making games, and how we were trying to do to communicate rules of a world to a player in a way where as a player starts in a completely new world, you don't know the rules, so you have to kind of learn how this world works. And it just fits so well with Montessori that I just took a decision, and I was like 22 years old or something, and I took a decision that when I have kids, they're going to go to the Montessori system, and I've followed up on that. So all my kids are in Montessori today. So the pedagogics of how you communicate rules is a fascinating topic.
That's very interesting, because we think about that a lot as well, and how blockchain and the incentive mechanisms that can come from these tokens could communicate similar rules in some aspects. We've thought we have 3 pillars of practical, is what I like to call it, and the first one is computers need to understand the world around us, maps. Computers need to understand what's in the world around us, objects. And computers need to understand what we do in the world around us. And so this third one is really interesting because it's actions. And so I've always imagined, the action of, if I bend over to pick up a piece of trash and I put that in a trash can, that's an action. And if we can teach a computer to understand that action and recognize that action, it changes the world. What's to stop a municipality from loading crypto up in a wallet and incentivizing their citizens to pick up trash around town? What does a company become at that point? Is it just an app that uses these APIs for actions, and they crowdsource labor in that respect? So, we've thought a lot about, that a similar topic. It's not exactly the same, but it's very interesting on how these newer tokens and this emerging industry can act as an incentive mechanism for so much, right?
Yeah, just to follow up, the natural extension of that is the topic that I find super interesting, and which I kind of just realized is going to be very important. It's the token economy that we will develop. And I think the ICO boom that we've kind of seen over the last year, or has just started really, I remember Torbjørn's presentation from Menon Economics earlier, where he's trying to be the negative guy, but he's right about there's being a lot of scam projects or poorly thought out projects where the token doesn't really have a proper financial system around it. And I think for valuing ICO projects for the future, understanding the token economics of a particular project is going to be key to identifying the right projects that will make a good investment. But if you continue this train of thought, that's when you start to see what kind of role can tokens play in our society for the future. And that's where it really becomes interesting, because I think we're going to see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tokens from all the loyalty programs that are central based now. They will be decentralized, and tokens will be all around us, and we can use them, and we will need wallets that can interchange them very simply. And that's where we will have to figure out how are we going to design proper systems for tokens, like incentive systems, like you're saying. So I think that's a super interesting topic, and it's kind of just dawned on me that this is going to be very important for the future.
Token economics. I followed Bitcoin for a pretty long while, and I jumped in on the first before it was called an ICO. Mastercoin, now dubbed Omni. So it's interesting the way I evaluate other projects that I look at today. I still like to look around and, You know, a lot of people say by the team, but the very first thing that I look at a project is how they're looking at the economics of their token. Are they creating a sustainable economy in the long term? Have they even thought about the creation of a sustainable economy alongside their token or alongside their product? And so that's one way that you know, I've been so adamant about with my team from the very beginning is looking into modeling our incentives out, our rewards out, and our uses out 10 years down the road. You know, what happens when we hit 1 billion users? Is our economy still going to be stable in our product? And that's a really tricky thing to figure out, because there's not a lot of resources out there on how to create a long-term sustainable token economy. But it is a conversation that needs to be brought up more and needs to be had more, because there's a lot of projects that just don't even think about that step, I feel. And it's so, so, so important. I mean, you get that mass adoption, that's what everybody wants, but what happens if the economy crashes because of it, you know? So we need to think about that more for sure.
Henning, do you think that gaming can have a huge influence on children if we can use gaming for a learning tool, and where you can have fun and increase your knowledge and earning money?
Well, that last bit about earning money is, first of all, let me just cover the first part of your question about how games can play a role in education, because that is a topic that I actually, when I was running my own games company, like literally 20 years ago, it was a topic that I cared passionately about, and I tried to get involved with the Norwegian government, and this was like late 90s, and I was trying to advocate that using, and it kind of followed up from my interest in pedagogics. I was just thinking, these are very powerful tools that we can use in education. So we should really start creating learning tools that we can use in schools. And I remember at that time that in Norway, what was important for politicians was not so much software, it was hardware. So a lot of money was spent buying computers for schools. So they granted millions and millions and millions of kroner to outfitting computer rooms in schools, but there was no budget and no thought given to the software running on the computers. So you had all these computers there, and they were, I don't know what they were actually being used for, but the computers was just like, that's just a platform, you need to build on top of it. And
you know what? I know it. I was on these LAN parties.
It's just so. So I started thinking a lot about, you know, what kind of fields of education are best suited for developing learning games. And I think I don't have a definitive answer, but I found myself most interested in actually history. Society, I don't know actually what you would, samfunnskunnskap in Norwegian, what's the English
Science.
Social sciences, maybe?
Science.
So I think that those kinds of topics are actually super well suited for virtual worlds and for role-playing games and trying to convey period themes, like going back in history. So I would love to see those kinds of projects. I really tried to get that going, but there was like zero pickup from anyone, and there was kind of no economics in it as well, so I couldn't really start developing it myself.
Yeah.
But I believe there's huge potential for that.
Yeah. I mean, look at you know, Pokemon. I mean, people doing crazy stuff to collect some points. I mean, they almost kill themselves just to collect that point. That point doesn't have a value, but people do anything for nothing, you know. So what would be if people actually could collect coins that has a value.
Is that the wisdom of crowds working?
No, I mean, when you put learning tool and earning money and increase your knowledge, I mean, then you get got a huge thing, I think.
I actually got to sit down with CEO and CTO of Niantic, and it was interesting the way they thought about that exact thing you just brought up. You know, the extents people will go to for these augmented games.
Did you ask them about their servers?
There were lots of questions that got brought up. But the social responsibility is a huge thing when you're creating an augmented reality game in that respect. And so when you add an incentive, like we're talking about here, into an augmented reality-esque thing to where people are going out into the real world, social responsibility is even bigger. And that's, you know, Pokemon Go was the first maybe major augmented reality application we see hit the world. There's going to be a lot more. And those are conversations that are going to come up is, you know, how are we thinking about the social responsibility? We had a sidebar conversation about, you know, just who owns the virtual space. You know, if a Pokemon spawns in your business, do you own the rights, like mineral rights? Do you own your virtual rights on your property? What does that mean? How are we going to approach that conversation in the future? So there's as is with every emerging technology, there's just so much.
That's very interesting.
So much that, you know, we need to start having conversations about. And it's just starting the conversation, you know. It's getting the people that make these regulations and make these laws, as we run into with crypto and Bitcoin right now, starting the conversation and figuring out how they perceive it and trying to steer the ship a little bit and give input, because we're the people that know the tech, right?
Yeah. Actually, we could sit a little more, but we are running off the time, I think. So we have to finish up here. So give these guys a big applause, and thank you for sharing. Good. We are going to have like a little bit networking, so you can get together and have a little mingling, and we can have get a drink and get to know each other, so we can get bigger community. So thank you very much, everybody.